Hi, my name is Sean Rubin. I'm the Director of Blended Learning at the Highlander Institute, and welcome to an introduction to blended and personalized learning. We're going to use this video to help kind of establish the connection between personalized learning and how blended learning can help support personalized learning in classrooms. So let's start with a little bit of context. Really, if we're focused on personalized learning and blended learning, what we're talking about ultimately is mastery. Mastery of skills, mastery of content, mastery of standards across multiple subject areas is our ultimate goal for our students. And really then, personalization becomes our challenge. How do we personalize around interest? How do we personalize around student needs or gaps in learning? And really what we talk about at the Highlander Institute is then blended learning can be a solution for the challenges of personalized learning to support mastery. So if we look at mastery and we talk about mastery as a focus on standards and competencies, really this allows for a lot of great stuff in classrooms. It allows for us to be able to collect formative assessment data around specific standards and competencies, which is much more difficult to do when you're looking at completion of tasks. It allows for us to differentiate content and instruction, and students can now move at their own pace through these standards and competencies. And it gives students the opportunities, if they know the standard and they know that they've mastered it, to be able to represent that understanding in multiple ways. And really, by focusing on mastery, we're shifting away from concepts like completion of tasks or the memorization and explanation of facts. So if we have now understanding of what we're looking for in mastery, and mastery is our ultimate goal, how do we personalize? How do we take personalized learning and push it forward in our classrooms? Well, there's many ways to personalize student learning, and it's been happening for decades. We've been talking about student individual learning plans. In special needs students, we focus very clearly on personalizing and individualizing our supports for those students, whether it's internships or opportunities for students to move through multiple pathways. Personalization is not something new to classrooms due to the onset of blended learning, but blended learning does make personalized learning a lot more possible at scale across more classrooms. Let's talk a little bit more deeply as to how. Well, one way that we can personalize student learning is by differentiating and scaffolding the core content. So if we have a course standard and we collect formative pre-assessment data, what personalized learning allows us to do is to differentiate that core content so that for a student that is past that pre-assessment, they're able to access higher level content, more complex ways of looking at the core. For students that are right at grade level, then the core is connected to their needs. And for students that need remediation, what this allows is for the core to be able to really remediate and make those connections, but not for them to miss out on core, because they all need core in order to be able to keep moving forward in their classrooms. Another way we can personalize is by allowing for students to move at their own pace. And in order to do this, what we need is really a scope and sequence that extends our standards across multiple grade levels. Because if we think about these from multiple grade levels and we start to stack our standards in ways that students can progress through them without waiting for the teacher or without waiting for their peers, so that we have the content, whether it be in a course or it be just multiple playlists that allow for students to move at their own pace, and we have assessments that allow them to demonstrate mastery, then students can really move through their grade level content and even move into content that is beyond their grade level. A third way that we talk about personalization is by giving students voice and agency as to what they learn, or how they represent that learning. So for example, a standard like 7.1 in ELA that talks about textual evidence and drawing inferences from that textual evidence, we can have a student that we want to personalize for around voice and agency and really give her choice in what she learns about. So for example, we can vary the types of articles or passages based on her interest. She could learn about the legacy of Muhammad Ali and still be able to draw inferences from that text. We can vary the choice and give her choice in how she learns it by varying the modality. She can read on her phone. She can read in a Google Doc. She can read from home or in the classroom. There's so many different ways for us to be able to vary the modality and give students more choice in how they demonstrate their understanding of this standard. Lastly, we can give her choice in how she represents her learning. No longer is it just one summative test at the end of a unit. We can push opportunities for assessment that allow for written, oral, or even media creation to students and give them the possibility of selecting the way that they want to show and demonstrate their mastery of these particular standards. So now we know some ways that we personalize learning for our students, but how can blended learning actually support this very complex and difficult work that we've really been trying to do for a very long time? Well, blended learning really is a nice combination of two things. It's the best of face-to-face instruction combined with the best of online learning. And when you bring these two pieces together and you have strong teachers driving classrooms and really scaffolding instruction in ways that only teachers can do through that human-to-human interaction, but then you bring in technology that allows students to really be able to learn at their own pace and not have to wait for the teacher because the teacher is just one sole being in that classroom. And then assessments built into that technology as well as into that face-to-face instruction that provide data so that the teacher really knows how best to personalize and push content and skills in front of those students. Now students can really begin to have a personalized experience in the classroom. This is one of my favorite pictures that kind of demonstrates what blended learning looks like in a classroom. You see the best of online learning with this student here who's locked in and her gaze is totally focused on the learning that she's doing at her grade level, at her specific need in whatever subject area that she's learning. But you also see the teacher here who's moving like her hair's on fire and running from one need to the next to try and figure out how best to support the students in the classroom. And then lastly, you see this student here whose tangled cord will probably take another 10 minutes before it will be unraveled and she'll be able to engage, showing us how difficult these new models can be to implement for brand new teachers in a brand new model, for teachers who are brand new to this new model. It's a struggle, it's a challenge, but when it pays off, it's incredibly powerful the ways that we're able to personalize for students. Let's talk about one way that we can do this that's a great way to get started with blended learning. It's called the station rotation model, and it has a few key features. First of all, it requires less devices. You really only need one device for every 3 students, which means you don't have to have a one-to-one classroom to do blended learning. It's a great way to easily differentiate instruction in 3 groups. Sometimes when people talk about personalized learning, they think they need to personalize for all of the different needs across their entire classroom of 26 students. But really, if we think about students based off our pre-assessment data in 3 different buckets of students that are beyond the assessment and need a push, students that are right at grade level and need that content delivered to them in the best modality possible for them, and students that need some remediation and some scaffolding, then we can really use the station rotation model to push all 3 of these groups. And lastly, the model supports teachers who are looking to personalize instruction across all 3 of the ways that we described earlier. You can use one of the ways and just differentiate core, or you could bring in pacing and student agency. Let's take a deeper look. So in a station rotation model, one of the key centers is teacher face-to-face instruction. And really what this is it gives the teacher the ability to deliver core instruction scaffolded for the needs of 3 different groups of students. So they can push those high kids and they can really support the ones that are on grade level and then also deliver core instruction in a remediated fashion for the ones that need it with the scaffolding that they need. Then the computer center allows for students to be able to progress at their own pace. Whether they be progressing through remediated content, grade level content, or accelerated curriculum, it allows for them to move without having to wait for anybody and really be able to engage in ways that allow for them to go back or move forward faster. It really brings that personalized choice and pacing to the classroom. And lastly, we want students to be interacting with their peers. We want them to be discussing high-level content. We want them to be engaging with each other. And so our collaborative center gives us the opportunity to create those opportunities for students to talk, for students to do projects together, and for students to really flex that agency and voice and choice that we want to have in our personalized learning classrooms. By bringing all 3 of these together, the station rotation model can be a starter opportunity for teachers who are just getting going with blended learning, or it can be a very complex system that allows for all different types of personalized instruction to take place. I hope this helps. Please let us know if you have any questions, and for more information, you can visit highlanderinstitute.org. Thank you.